Hi, my name is Ruby. I am a professional tarot reader, astrologer, intuitive channel, and this is my very new YouTube channel where I talk about all things related to tarot, astrology, and spirituality. Today, I wanted to do a full-length review, very honest review about my experience working with the Herbal Astrology Oracle. I started integrating oracle cards into my professional tarot practice within the past year. So I have used this deck now pretty extensively, both with myself and in client readings. So I feel like I have a very good grasp about how this deck reads, the things that are really useful about it. And I wanted to share that information here with you today in case you're on the fence about purchasing the deck or you're interested in adding oracle to your tarot practice. So it comes in this box. It is written by Adriana Ayales. I might be butchering that last name. She is the creator of Anima Mundi Herbals. And then the artwork is by Josephine Clerks. And the artwork in this deck is beautiful. So I bought this deck as an impulse purchase at like an herbal apothecary near where I live, probably in January or February of this year. So I've worked with this deck for a couple months, but I didn't have any plans on purchasing this deck. And this deck is my favorite oracle deck maybe of all time. So the box has this beautiful satin finish. It is published by Hay House. I just noticed that it was published by Hay House, but it has the feel of like an indie deck. So if you like higher quality, like bougie indie tarot and oracle decks like I do, you're gonna love this deck even though it's mass produced. You Are the Medicine is the inside of the box. The inside of this box is so beautiful. Everything about this deck is so beautifully crafted. It's so thoughtful. You can tell there was so much intention behind it. So this is the guidebook. We'll talk about the guidebook in a minute, but wonderful guidebook. Then these are the cards. So they're these really beautiful, like, satin finish cards. They look shinier than they are because of the glare of my camera light. But the backings of these decks are beautiful. And you can do reversals with this deck. And I will show you some of the cards while we talk more about it. So, and also just for reference, this is a Blue Angel Alana Fairchild Oracle deck. So it's typical oracle size. It's not quite as big as like the Blue Angel, like Alana Fairchild decks, but it's going to be bigger than your standard, like typical tarot card size. So each of these cards has a herb, an illustration of the herb, and then at the top it has the planetary combination. And I'm going to tell you some of the reasons why I like this deck so much. Let me also see how many cards are in this deck, because for Oracle you get a lot. I want to say it's like a 54 card deck. Like this has some weight to it. This is a meaty Oracle. This is, yeah, 55 cards in the deck. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck here. I feel like I've been recently buying these like 32, 33 card Oracle decks, and there's nothing wrong with them. But there's just something I really appreciate about like this beautiful, thick 55 card deck. This deck brings me so much. I do believe this is my favorite Oracle deck of all time for so many reasons. So there's not a bad card in this deck. So now we'll look at the images. There's not a bad card. All of the illustrations are beautiful. And I'm going to tell you why I love this deck so much and why I think it's essential for your collection, basically. So I love this deck because it teaches you about herbs and it also teaches you about astrology. So the type of training that I have done is I am an archetypal astrologer. And a big component of archetypal astrology is it's going planets first. So before you look at signs, houses, you're looking at planets and the planetary combinations. And Adriana Ayales has nailed the planetary combinations. And so even though I haven't extensively studied herbalism, I feel like these cards have given me such a deep understanding of the energy of these herbs because I'm already familiar with the energy of Venus or the energy of Venus moon. And because there is divination in this deck, and there's astrology in this deck, and herbalism in this deck, you are getting so much. So speaking of the divination, this deck just sang for me right away. This deck is completely accurate. It's completely bang on. It wants to talk about past lives. It wants to talk about the deepest soul level of an issue. So if you're somebody who is really serious about spiritual development and you're serious about your spiritual path, I think this is the deck for you. Valerian Acceptance, Neptune. So even if you don't know anything about herbs, if you have a little bit of astrological knowledge, then you know how Neptune, the energy of Neptune, feels. And does that not feel like the energy of Neptune? So now you have an understanding of the medicine of this herb without ever needing to read a book about herbalism. So when I use this deck for myself, there was a while I was doing daily draws with this deck. Now I don't use it every day, but it's always on my altar space. It's always on my reading table. So if you're using this deck for yourself, you can use it as a daily draw for divination. And it will read really well that way. You can also use this deck more in a ritual space. So let's say you're going through a certain astrological transit. You can set the planetary combination of that transit on the altar with the card, and you can incorporate the herb into that transit if you're honoring that transit. So if you are going through a Pluto moon transit, you can call on the energy of Kava to support you through that experience, through that energetic initiation. And you can work with that plant in other ways as well. You can use it in spells, you can use it medicinally. So there's so many ways that you can use this deck. You can also use this deck to invoke the plant energies, the plant spirits. So if you will want to work with Motherwort and you're doing a ritual or an invocation for Motherwort, you can put this on your altar. So I love this deck so much. So like I said, I use this for daily draws. I do use this in ritual space. I will also use this to ask what herbs should I be working with, because I do work with herbs in my spiritual practice, in my magical practice. In workings a lot I use herbs, excuse me. Still feeling that Mercury retrograde shadow period. So I will use this deck and consult this deck before like going to the herbal apothecary. Like, what herbs do I need? So another way I use this deck is with clients. And when I use this deck with clients, I'm using it as a clarifier for tarot. And I'm using this deck to get to the root of an issue, because this deck is an amazing clarifier for tarot. And this deck really wants to talk about soul purpose and soul gifts. So if a client of mine is asking, what are my gifts this lifetime? What am I working on a soul level? This is the deck that comes up. I've also used this deck as a clarifier for astrology readings. So if I'm like wanting a little more clarity, I'm going really deep about a transit with a client, because this deck has such deep astrological wisdom in it, I just find it supports an astrological reading as well. So if you are a professional reader, you're just gonna get so many uses out of this. You're gonna get so many personal uses out of this. You're gonna get so many professional uses out of this. Look at how beautiful these cards are. This is definitely my ride or die favorite ever. Bury me with this deck. So now I want to talk a little bit about the guidebook. A lot of times I find guidebooks for oracle readings to be hit or miss. This is a guidebook that you should consult, and consulting this guidebook is going to really ground the cards. So let's look into the guidebook. So for every card, you get the upright divinatory meeting, the reversed meeting, the astrological ruler of the herb, and then you get a history of the herb, and then guidance or some deeper divinatory meanings about the herb. So if you are looking to incorporate more herbalism into your spiritual practice, this book is going to give you so much information, such a deepening of wisdom about how the herbs were used historically, as well as their magical properties. So you're getting a really holistic, rounded education with each of these cards. So like I said, this deck is just, it's multi-dimensional, it's multifaceted, it is a workhorse, it wants to go very deep, it's very accurate, but even if you don't do a lot of divination and you're a fan of astrology or you're a fan of herbalism, I think you'll get a lot out of this. This is definitely my favorite oracle deck of all time. It's one of my favorite deck purchases all year. There's certain tarot decks it likes to read with. It really likes to read with the Ritual Tarot. So the Ritual Tarot by Tira May, which is an indie deck. The Herbal Astrology Oracle loves to read with this. It also loves to read with the Mary L Tarot. So there's certain decks that it likes to read with, and the decks it likes to read with tend to also be decks that go very deep, that want to talk about past lives, that want to talk about what's happening at like the deepest soul level. So if you go there a lot with your readings and you're looking for a clarifier for tarot, get this deck. Just buy this deck. Just buy this deck. Honestly, it's, if you love the imagery, it's buy it now. So I hope that was helpful. I am wishing you well. I am sending you so much love, and I will see you soon.